Very good. So Gamma Iota Sigma is a professional insurance business fraternity here at ISU. There we go. Professional insurance business fraternity here at ISU, and we host a wide variety of events, being educational, whether that be having companies come down and present about a certain topic for their company. We have service events, DEI, fundraising, and social events. So we cast a wide net with that, and our chapter is made up of 120 members, mostly of risk management and insurance majors, as well as actuarial science majors, but we also draw in a lot of just general business majors. And we are one of 110 chapters nationwide, and we are the Alpha Kappa chapter. And each semester we host around 60 events. So we keep our members very busy.
You click on the presentation.
Yeah. There we go. Thank you. So every single year at the Gamma Iota Sigma annual conference, the top performing chapters are awarded based on MCR points. MCR points are monthly chapter reports, and it is Grand Chapter's way of keeping track of each individual chapter. So the more alumni you have in an event, the more events you have, the more industry that comes down, and the better attended the events are, the more points your chapter receives. And if your chapter is one of the chapters that receive 1,500 MCR points, that means you become a distinguished chapter. So ISU this past year was one of only 7 chapters in the nation to receive that distinguished chapter. And with the distinguished chapter, that means you also become eligible for the Edison L. Bowers Award, which is named after the man pictured here, Edison L. Bowers, who was one of the first ever insurance professors, as well as the creator of many insurance designations. And with the eligibility of the Bowers Award, it is required that each distinguished chapter creates a presentation on why they deserve it, because it represents the best and most well-rounded chapter in the nation. So with being a distinguished chapter, I knew that we had to make a team and a presentation that was capable of winning the Bowers Award. So the first thing I did was to look at Grand Chapter's feedback from our prior year's presentation. So Illinois State's Alpha Kappa chapter has been a distinguished chapter for the 2 years prior, so we presented for the Bowers Award multiple times. So I looked at that feedback, and from that feedback, I realized that we needed to focus more on our DEI efforts, as well as have a greater variety of speakers for the presentation. So with that in mind, I went out to create the team, which consisted of new and returning members of Gamma Iota Sigma, an actuarial science student, our president from last year, and then myself. And with that team all created, we then went about creating the presentation. And then we made sure to practice that presentation many times in front of our most critical peers, as they'd be able to give us the best feedback as they were directly involved in the chapter. So come along to the Gamma Iota Sigma annual conference. We had a presentation that was focused around these topics here, being membership, events and engagement, diversity, equity, and inclusion, service, teamwork, and challenges. So we felt these were the pillars of our chapter and best represented everything that we accomplished for the 23-24 school year. And while we were practicing for the presentation beforehand, we faced lots of challenges along the way, whether it be mispronouncing words, accidentally interrupting someone, or forgetting a line altogether. There were a lot of bumps on the road. However, when we gave our rendition of the presentation to the panel of judges for the Bowers Award, we gave our best rendition of it. So we knew regardless of what happened, we could be proud of our efforts. So at the Gamma Iota Sigma annual conference, the first night is the annual awards dinner where the winner is announced. And starting last year, they started announcing the top 3 teams, making it a little bit more suspenseful. So in 3rd place this year was Drake University. In 2nd place was Appalachian State. And 1st was ISU's Alpha Kappa chapter. Here's a live picture. Here's a live picture of Gracie and I's reaction of when we won. As you can tell, we were pretty excited about the outcome of that. So this was a huge deal for us, as this was the first time the Alpha Kappa chapter here at ISU has ever won that. So I'm sure, as all of you know, the quality of Katy School students that have walked in and out of this building is superb. So it is great to be the first ever year that we've won this. And even with this win, it has made our chapter hungrier than ever to continue to improve. So for this current school year, we had the most MCR points of any Gamma Iota Sigma chapter in the nation, and we hope to repeat as Bowers Award winners this upcoming fall. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I was very lucky because I had a front row seat. I just happened to be sitting right where the announcements were going to be at that dinner. And the first huge surprise was there were some big schools that didn't even make the final 3, right? Like Temple and things like that. So there was sort of a gasp and all that, and then they go through 3, 2, 1. The excitement was just overwhelming. for ISU to win. Because I think the chapter has so much respect within Gamma. And the fact that ISU never won it before is actually a little bit surprising to a lot of people. So I think it was really, really well deserved, well received really by the whole industry. So, yeah.
Does anyone have any questions pertaining to that?
Great job.
Yeah. And now I'll be talking to you about our annual Power of an Inclusive Workforce. So every single year for the past 6 years, Gamma Iota Sigma, in collaboration with the Katy School of Risk Management and Insurance, has created this Power of an Inclusive Workforce event, which intends to highlight underrepresented perspectives within the insurance industry. And we do this in the form of a panel discussion, which is moderated by our Director of DEI, who this year was Sadira Ali, who was pictured on the last two pictures and was in here earlier on. And the overall goal of this event is to draw more attention to the insurance industry, as it shows how many different people work within the industry, and also attract new eyes to the industry for people that previously never even thought about working within it. So with this event, lots of planning goes into it, and one of the biggest parts of it is acquiring panelists for the event. So last year, we were lucky enough to have Ron Anderson from State Farm, who is a blind computer programmer, and a lot of students really enjoyed hearing from his perspective. So we reached out to State Farm again, and they set us up with Kendall Farmer, who identified as an autistic woman. So it was great to have her on board. We also had Kelsey Hayes from Munich Re, who is a Katy School grad. So it's always great to have someone that is on the panel that was recently in our shoes, as it makes them a lot more relatable. And then we also had Megan Goldfarb, who is there, I promise. And she is a part of the Casualty Actuarial Society. Like I mentioned in the last presentation, we have a large actuarial science presence. So it was great to have her on board as well. And then we also had the risk manager of the Chicago Cubs, Dino Styris. He works with lots of different cultures, just with being in the sports world. So it was great to have him on board as well. So we also made sure, as a part of the planning, that we took the feedback from prior years and make sure to adjust accordingly so it could make this the best event yet. And then every single year with this event, we create a DEI committee where students in Gamma are able to help out with this event. And in the DEI committee, it is basically a way to help market and promote the event, as well as just like help brainstorm ideas for the event. So every student there reaches out to all different RSOs across campus, not just business ones, to invite them to come to this amazing event. And then also a part of the DEI committee, you reach out to local companies to try to get buy-in to see if anyone would be willing to donate for this event. And then also we create an agenda for the night, just so everything goes smoothly. So a big part of this event is the personal growth that it gives to our Director of DEI. So for the past 2 years, we've had rather shy and not the most outspoken Director of DEIs. So we set them up with a speech coach in Ryan Tinlin, who works in the comm department here at ISU. And he has been a big help to the both of us, as he really helps us project our voice and just, make us more confident in our presenting skills. And a big part of it is also practicing in front of our peers. A lot of that feedback that we get from our peers is very useful to be ready for the big day. So now is the big event. This is the agenda that we have for it. So the event starts with a career fair where every single Katy School Advisory Board company is invited to come and table to connect with everyone that is attending the event. So a picture of some students tabling. And then also, based on the feedback we received from last year, because we reach out to so many different people, not everyone's very comfortable with, networking at the career fair, as they may not be interested in the insurance industry or may just not feel very confident in it. So we created a networking hour where we set up tables next to the career fair as an alternative where the students could order mocktails and chat with the friends that they came with or to meet someone new. And once those two wrap up, we move along to a cultural dinner where this year we had Indian food, Italian food, Mexican food, and Chinese food. So it shows a diverse palette on display at the Katy School. And then we move on along to the main event of the night, which is the panel, which they tackle all types of things centered around diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether it be hot topics, how we can implement it within our own organizations and the workplace, as well as the wider world. And then the night concludes with rapid prizes. So the legacy of this event is that it is the largest student-led DEI event on campus, and it is also Gamma Iota Sigma's largest event. So that is a very great title that we hope to hold continually. And this past year, we reached 21 different RSOs on campus, which I have listed here. So you can see we reach a wide variety. There are plenty of business organizations, but also we have things like Pickleball Club, We have the fencing club at ISU. I didn't even know that was the thing, but we reached them. But it shows just the amount of people that we could attract to the industry as they were all willing to show up to this event. And we had around 150 attendees for this year, so it was great to see how many different students this event impacted. And last year at the Student Leadership Advisory Board Gala, which is basically the award ceremony for College of Business student organizations, this event and our organization was given the award for diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is the first time they ever handed out an award for that. So that was a very big deal for us, as it is now an award-winning event. And then we made sure to integrate DEI into our culture and not just make it a second thought. We have to have it in every single aspect of the Katy School and Gamma Iota Sigma. And so this Power Inclusive Workforce has been a very important event to me for the past 2 years, as I've played a big role in both years. And I really look forward to seeing it continue to grow once I graduate. And I want to thank all of you for your continued support of the Katy School and in turn our Gamma Iota Sigma chapter, as events like this would not be possible without all of you. Thank you.
How many days are in a semester? Like, how many days are you here? 90, 95? Like, you had 60 events in 90 days?
It is a lot. There's a lot of events, and that's not even.
Several per week,
Yeah, it sounds like it. Every other day.
opportunities, and you don't have to go to every one.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have several opportunities.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I'd say we have about 3 or 4 a week at least. And then that's not even counting our actuarial club, a part of our Gamma Iota Sigma chapter, so that's a whole different stratosphere. I think we're probably gonna finish with around 170 events in total, with both of those combined, so.
So compared to many other RSA on campus, which are what, once a month?
Once a week.
Once a week,
Yeah.
every week.
Okay. no.
Maybe I missed it. SO is service organization. What's our?
Registers, sorry,
Registered. okay.
yes, that's just kind of the word that they use here. at ISU.
They're insured.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Zach. Good.
Thanks.
So next we have Veronica, who's gonna talk about, the conferences, and you've heard about all the different conferences that we send students to. And this is just one of the many. This is kind of an important one. This is one that, we actually help to organize. Debbie's, very involved with this. Gamma's very involved in coordinating this in Chicago, and we send a lot of students to this event. So thought it'd be good to have an understanding about this particular event and what the students do and get from that. So, Ronnie.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming out to ISU. We appreciate all of your support. And my name is Veronica Siva. I am a junior, double majoring in finance and risk management and insurance. And like Jim said, today I'll be talking about WSIA, or some people call it WSIA as well. And we went to the WSIA Extreme Risk Takers Symposium. So an overview, this event was a 2-day conference in late March this year in Chicago. We have been the Katy School has been hosting it for about 15 plus years. And this year there was 29 Katy School students who attended, and I was one of them as well. And overall, we had 200 plus risk management and insurance students present, and nationwide, there was about 20 different universities there with them as well. And then the focus of this conference or symposium is to get a better understanding of the excess and surplus lines industry. So day one, we kicked off the event with a E&S 101. So for some of those students who may not have known what excess and surplus line is or what the wholesale industry is, this was a great start off and a great informational session. In my table, I had 8 other students, and one of the students was actually a freshman, so I can't imagine how much he didn't know before and how much he was able to learn throughout that just one session about excess and surplus lines. Then we rotated into a career fair and a roundtable session. So half the students went to a career fair. This was a great opportunity for students who either don't have internships or full-time jobs to just be able to network with people. And, if they do even have internships or full-time jobs, just to get more experience and be able to grow their network. As for the roundtable sessions, we were able to talk to 3 different professionals, some of them being either on the underwriting or on the brokerage side, so this was almost like a student-based led panel or session, so you're able to ask any questions prevalent that might have interested you or just get to know that professional as well. And then we had a social networking event at the end of the night. This was a great way for us students to be able to relax. It was at Lucky Strike, which is a bowling alley and arcade. So it was a great way for us students to just wind down and be able to network with those fellow students in a more casual setting. So day 2, we started off the day with a bingo networking game. So Zach did a great job with this. For example, like on bingo, you have squares, and on those squares, there was a different topic. So you had to go up to a student and find a student either who is a double major, who has studied abroad, who has the favorite color as you, or who was born in the same month as you. So a wide variety of different topics on them. And basically the incentive for this is not only for you to connect with them and be able to grow your network, but also connect with them on LinkedIn. For example, I connected with, I think about like 20 other students. So after the symposium, I still am able to connect with them and be able to see what they're doing or what's new in their college or university, because you never know when you're able to see those people later on in your future. And they say your network is your net worth. So I think that is a great point to emphasize on. And then we moved on to educational sessions. So Josh Anderson from CRC, he talked about NILs and about college athletes. This was a great perspective for students to see a different side of your standard admitted carriers and what they insure and how non-admitted carriers go about different topics. And then we moved on to a case study with Brett Dressner. I thought this was personally super interesting. He split up the room into 2 parts, half of them being brokers, half of us being underwriters. He gave us a case. This case had policies on it. For example, we had to look at like a nightlife club bar, and we had to evaluate their liquor license and what was going on. And for example, one of the cases was that a security guard got into a fight. Like, how does that make their policies change? And how would an underwriter go about that? And how would a broker try to sell it to that underwriter? So we were bouncing ideas across the room, which was just great. And at the end, he showed us what the final result was. So this was a true case and a true story for him. And he showed us how he was able to sell this product and be able to have this company underwritten. And then we moved on to a panel discussion from panelists from Burns & Wilcox, RPS, GenStar, and Tokyo Marine. This was just a basic overview of what types of unique claims they've had, and they shared some of their cool stories. For example, the Tokyo Marine lady, she talked about her mice testing, how mice are insured if they're given certain types of medications. So I thought their stories were a unique perspective for us to see how the excess and surplus lines go about insuring unique risks. So like Jim said, this is a co-curricular impact. We are able to grow professionally from these experiences. So not only was it a great example for students to learn about the excess and surplus lines, we touch a little bit about it in our classes, but just being able to go to these conferences just gives you so much more information that wouldn't be shown in your daily classes. And then it also helps you build confidence, being able to go up to industry professionals, shake their hand, have your name stick with them, and be able to connect with them either on LinkedIn or either get an internship as well, mentors, full-time offers. There's so many variety of ways for you to grow from conferences like these. And for me personally, I will be a WSIA intern, so this symposium was super beneficial for me because I will be interning at Burns & Wilcox in Chicago and Bridge Specialty in Oak Brook. So I was able to meet not only both of my companies, but from both companies, I was able to meet people I will actually be interning and seeing over the summer. So it only excited me, it only made me more excited for what the summer has to come, and overall just being able to network with so many people from the ENS side, which is something that interests me and allows us students to get a better understanding of. So that's all from the WSI conference. Thank you all.
Ron, I like what you said, your network's your network, and it's kind of cool that you guys are entering the industry, but unlike many of us, you guys have a network leaving school.
Right.
And these other 200 students who are not, at the university, you normally would not have met. Now you do, you now have friends. And these are gonna be your underwriters, your brokers, your reinsurers, your leaders. So that's great.
I'm excited.
One thing to add, it's so pleasing to see that, at the student roundtable, the industry professionals, there were 23 tables and each professional moved from table to table, so they rotated around. About half of the 23 were Cape School alumni who volunteered, knowing that we were hosting, they'd been there before, they wanted to be involved. So it was great. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, so next, we're gonna talk a little bit about one of the competitions. Now, the students have different competitions you've heard about over the years. We've got the risk management competition, Spencer, that we took third place in worldwide, first in the United States last year. We have this competition, which we've now had two back-to-back victories. We have another competition on the sales and brokerage. And this kind of gives you an idea of what goes into a competition, what the students get out of it, what their experience is like. So we'll have actually two presentations. This one is on running an insurance agency. So that was the competition division. The other is on the actual selling of the insurance. So Grace, what to us about Grace is the captain of the team for the selective college competition.
Yes, hi everyone, I'm Gracie Citadino. I'm currently a junior here studying risk management and insurance. And kind of what Jim said, we were defending our title this year, so we had to come back with a boom. This was the 8th annual Prism Business War Game, and it is a 5-week computer simulation competition. So the first week is just kind of a practice week. It does not count, which is very nice. They just implemented that this year. Then the next 4 weeks, that was real. And it was very competitive. We had teams from the 7 top colleges with risk management and insurance programs. So it's already an honor that we were top 7 schools. So it's great that we're even in it in the beginning, but that shows that we are going against the best of the best when it comes to other schools with our MI programs. So this is a competition head-to-head battle for market share. And it is a zero-sum game. So pretty much what that means is if we had a gain for our team, that directly impacts another team, giving them a negative, kind of at a disadvantage. So if another team did well, that would kind of hurt us, but at the same time, if we made good moves, that would hurt them. So that makes it very realistic as well. And it was an immersive experience of what it's like to run an insurance agency. So here is our team. We were the Redbird Risk Masters. There is me, as I said, junior risk management and insurance major. Then we had Joseph Broom, who is also a junior. He was a major in business analytics. Danny was a senior in majoring in risk management and insurance. And then our youngest on the team was Carly Pye, who is a sophomore studying risk management and insurance. So it really helps different age groups as well as different majors. Joseph Broom being business analytics really actually helped us because it's a lot of crunching numbers in analytics anyway. He really liked spreadsheets and going into Excel. So that really did end up helping us. And everyone was definitely an asset to the team. So going into what our strategy was. So since it is a zero-sum game, we knew from the beginning, we needed to focus on the highest profit niches early. We wanted to acquire those compared to the other teams because if they got them before us, we would not be able to acquire those carriers. So we all started in personal lines, and then we decided that we wanted to expand into commercial lines just to diversify ourselves. And also that's where more of the profit we saw in the game was. So we did that early. We acquired that new business early in commercial lines. And I do think that was one of our big successes when it came to this competition. Then another huge thing was analyzing our client preferences. When we did our end of the simulation call, every team was able to kind of give a reflection on what maybe they didn't do too well, what they did do well. And I do think overall, ISU, our team, we focused more heavily on this, the client's preferences and their values compared to the other teams, and I think that's another reason why we stepped above. We were able to look at what our clients, what they value. Did they value expertise? Did they value wellness? Did they value competency? And if they did, we were able to train our staff and our employees to that, to tailor to our customers and our niches. And that all just kind of works together, and that ties into making investments early on. So the training did cost a lot of money in the beginning, but it was definitely worth it when it came to what we got at the end, as well as debt. All of us started off with a lot of debt. And so with our two mentors that were from the Horton Group, they advised us, get the debt down as soon as you can, so then you don't have to deal with that, because margin was one of the grading factors. I'll show you in the next slide. And so that did matter. This I know is really small. I'll try and read these to you. So we got graded on 4 different things. We were graded on our net revenue, our net margin, our CSI, so customer satisfaction index, and then also our producer attrition. So every week, this would be the final screen that we would see before we turned it in. And we could see real time what our actions and our decisions were making. But when we did turn it in, it always came back a little bit different, since all the other teams were making the same decisions at the same time. So here, I don't know if you can see it, but our producer attrition is 8%. That was the thing that we struggled with the most, was attrition. We could not figure out for the life of us how to get producer attrition down. Towards the end, we realized it was commission. We just had to keep making the commission rate super high. Our renewing business commission we gave was 40%, which is definitely something I don't think you would ever do in the real industry, but that kind of is why this simulation is a little bit unique, because it's not always things that you would actually do in the real world, but for some reason it worked in the simulation. But that was where we did struggle the most, was attrition. But other than that, every week we would do this. So for the 4 weeks that were the real rounds, we would meet twice a week, go through the screens, and this would be our final screen that we would take pictures of and hope for the best when we turned it in. And I wanted to show this screen as well, because this was one of the screens that highlighted the values of our clients. So we were able to max out on the things that our clients needed. So for example, niche 2 was one that we really liked, and we really wanted to keep that business. They really valued service level. So they wanted our employees to value service. So we trained and we maxed it out to 2.5, just so that we matched what they liked as well, so that we could keep getting them back. Because of course we can acquire the business, but how do we keep the business? So that was really how we did that, was reading what they liked and then tailoring ourselves to them. Then I was able to get everyone in my group to give me a sentence of what their key takeaway was. So for Joseph Brown, he said, fitting the customer needs of the highest profit markets and incentivizing producers to open new accounts in the markets what we want to write in, was what his key takeaway was. Danny said, tailoring your commissions towards new business allows your agency to both acquire new customers and keep profit margin high. Carly said, specialization and focusing on client-specific needs should be key considerations when deciding how to prioritize your resources. And then I said, investing in your company early and prioritizing your clients' preferences is essential for receiving and retaining customers. And then just to focus on, which is kind of why I was talking about that the whole time. That's truly what I got out of this whole thing. But it's one thing to get new member or get new customers. It's another thing to retain them. And so that's really what we worked on the most. And I think that's what differentiated ourselves from all the other teams. Here is also a little small, but we ended up with 96 points out of 100. So every week, out of those 4 categories that we were graded on, it was averaged out of 100. So we ended up in first place at 96, and then Indiana State was our competition pretty much the whole time. They also had a very strong team coming in at 92.7. So we did have quite a lead from the beginning. We started in the practice round being 3rd place. So that also helped us because we saw what we did and what we didn't want to do again. And then from there, we were able to make more improvements from week 2 to 5. So that really helped us as well. And this is something that we spent our own time doing out of class. And I do want to highlight how we did spend 2 days a week out of class meeting for a couple hours. But this is something that we don't get the opportunity to do in traditional classes. We don't get the opportunity to run a simulation game like this, where truly you can see what every little decision you do impacts your company, and how what every decision your opposing teams do impacts their company as well. And it really fostered strategic and critical decision-making sitting in that table, all kind of having different opinions on what decisions you want to do, what lines of business do you want to go for. Really, that was a huge thing that we definitely all got out of it, as well as just teamwork at the end of the day. It helped us collaborate with people. When you're meeting with your group 2 times a week, you really just become friends at the end of it. So that was also a great benefit from this, and our mentors were absolutely amazing. We'll actually be going to dinner with them next week to celebrate in a way. They were the best help, and ISU is very lucky to have had them before and to have them now. Yes, thank you all for your time. If you have any questions.
I got one question here, and you answered what I was gonna ask, so my next, I'm gonna maybe go towards Jim.
Okay.
We've done within like our business, these simulations for high potential employees, and it's been fantastic understanding how everything works together, the cause and effect. So I was gonna, do you get any of that learning from class? And you said no. Is there any consideration to building in this type of simulation into your curriculum whereby you get to experience the business from all different perspectives? Because I think it does help round out.
No, you're absolutely right. So we built one with the help of a friend of mine who was from London on the insurance operations. And we offered that for several years. And when I taught the insurance operations class, it was, embedded in that. It got to the point though, where it's you wouldn't recognize it as an Excel spreadsheet, but that's what it was. It was it had all these macros in it. Well, you get to the point now in this era of cybersecurity, no university wants that on their system. So we have to rebuild the whole thing. So this is running an insurance company. That was our kind of our capstone. So we have to now rebuild it in the cloud, kind of like this one is, so that it's not sitting on one of our university servers, because it red flags every single thing. So we don't have that ability right now, but you're absolutely right. And it was always something in the insurance operations class that students always commented on. This is, so valuable because it ties in all of the foundational learning. So you're absolutely right. So I think I heard Swiss Re or somebody had one. So if you know of one, Jinri used to have one too. And it would still have to be in the cloud and somebody would have to facilitate it. But if anybody else says, oh, you can get one this way, all you have to do is pay some money, maybe I can find the money, from somebody here. But we can look at that as an option, because I think that's such a huge deal. But otherwise, we're gonna have to rebuild this, for the cloud. It's a great question.
It was
So
really, really well done. I think you'd be a great acquisition target for Gallagher. I don't know. Well done. It's really good.
Thank you.
Very good. Let's see. Hello, ladies. Here, you talked about this over the years. We've had, I think it's been going on probably 9 or 10 years now, where we engage with real world clients to solve real world problems, or at least, make suggestions on, what could be done for particular things. And we've had things ranging from dealing with droughts and agricultural risk, dealing with wildfires, catastrophe resilience, all these kinds of things. And this year, the 2 projects we have are, what is the role of regulation with artificial intelligence? And so our client is the Illinois Insurance Department. So we have one team that's working on that. And then this team is tackling an issue that has a bit of a challenge for the industry and for other industries as well, is how do you attract and retain women, especially women of color, in the sales area. So we have two students, neither one of them are mine. And one of the purposes of the consulting project is to get campus-wide students to think about, these issues in the insurance industry and think about potentially even careers in the insurance industry. So they're going to talk about their project on the consulting side. And then they're gonna have hopefully a little interaction here and ask your opinion on something to help them. They will be presenting at the Katy School Symposium next week. So if there's anything here that they can take away as well. So Kathleen and Isabel, you want to introduce yourselves?
Yes, thank you, Professor Jones. So this is our presentation, as Professor Jones just said, attracting and retaining women in insurance and sales brokerage. My name is Isabel Ruiz. I'm an international business major with a minor in Spanish. I'm a senior. I'll be graduating, and what attracted me to this project was the opportunity to work with a client like we just described. It's a really cool, different setup of a course that's not typically offered every semester, so I have to just jump on and get my feet wet. And I'm Kathleen Heiser. I'm a junior human resource management major, and I was attracted to the project because of the sole focus on women's issues when entering the business world. I went to an all-girl school in high school, so we were really empowered to pursue any kind of industry that we wanted to, but that's not always the case for women in the real world. And I was also interested in the recruitment aspect of the planning going into recruiting after graduation. So then first, we're going to talk about some of the issues and demographics we found from our research. We did most of our research through interviews and literature review. So up here we have two graphs that show kind of like the workforce composition of insurance brokerage. So as you can see, there's 37.5% of insurance brokers are women, and the majority of them are white. And this went hand in hand with our research, and we were able to identify 4 major obstacles that women face when entering the insurance industry. So the first obstacle that we found were just gender disparities in the business and corporate world. A lot of the fields in the business world are male dominated, so it's kind of difficult for women to kind of get their foot in the door and move up the ladder once they're in the industry. The second main obstacle was the lack of education and on the insurance industry and kind of what a insurance career could offer them and how it could benefit them. Unlike the Katy School, like there's many universities across the US that don't offer insurance programs and don't market them to students as much as their other majors. The third major obstacle that we found was that women struggle with business-to-business sales and insurance. Many women would rather have like a personal connection with their customer rather than having just working with companies. And without that personal connection, many of them don't want to pursue business-to-business sales. And the fourth obstacle was that there are limited growth opportunities for women once they're in the insurance industry. Many of the women we interviewed weren't offered any like mentorship or sponsorship programs. So they had to seek out these connections on their own, which is an additional thing to have to do when they already are doing their work. So next we do have a video to show you guys. There was an interview that was taking place at a case competition that was hosted in Florida at University. So we were actually not there to physically interview, but we had questions posed and we reviewed all of the responses. This is a fantastic display of what a competition or a university-wide event could have impact on students. If a company wants to sponsor this or put this on partnering with the university, this is a great display again of what the impact could have on the students. So I'm not entirely sure how I would play this.
See if this will work. I don't know. So.
They're there for you all to read.
Okay, everyone. Have to. The speaker one. No, it's all over YouTube, so over right here, right, that's all of it, so then we're clicking on here, so you get assist training, no?
It's the PowerPoint presentation. Gotta see
That's full screen.
Yeah.
Grads, man.
Take over, everyone.
All right, this is the interview.
Competition making people less likely to consider a career as a broker. Why not?
I feel like it has made me more likely to consider a career as a broker, because again, I never had that experience based on the internships that I have and the places that I've kind of been and experienced. So I feel like it has opened my eyes to giving risk management strategies and analyzing a business and kind of like breaking it down in that way.
Very short clip, but it does encompass the impact that these events could have on students, especially with the issue that we found of lack of education exposure to the different sales aspects with business to business or business to client, and having something like this would be a great outreach, not only for the company to get new talent, but also just educate students for different career paths that they might not have considered previously. So that's the first strategy and recommendation that we'd like to present to you. Now I'm going to move on to the next. So the next two that we discovered that would be appropriate for this, goal of retaining, but also acquiring women into the sales industry would be incorporating a different marketing strategy instead of only marketing to your clients or, to other businesses if you're business to business. Use marketing to get new talent. And one way to do that is through social media. Everyone uses social media, especially, younger generation, the recent graduates, they're very connected with things that are going on online. And so, looking at this graph on the right, we did actually create this, looking at it's called Insurance Talk. If you guys are familiar with TikTok at all, there are different communities that are embedded there, and lots of professionals go on there to share their experiences, show a day in the life. This is just an intern who's documenting what it's like to work at the company, which just shows a very personalized, relatable experience that people will be able to connect to. And there's also ways to connect with creators who already have a huge outreach to people around the world. So if the brand doesn't have their account already, they can always partner with somebody who does. And this person has already 17,000 followers, and those videos are shown again all over the world where TikTok has access to. Moving on to our final strategy that I'd like to talk about has to do with mentorship and sponsorship programs. One of the resources that we use in our research is actually looking at Reddit forums, because that's where people go to just speak freely without any type of filter or anything of that nature. And one of the forums that I was actually very interested in had to do with women speaking out how they can be brought into places that are just white spaces, women of color primarily talking about this. And a lot of the responses had to do with lack of the top of the organization having the commitment to bringing them in. And so one of the ways that the top commitment, could show that they're actually wanting to infiltrate the whole organization with this goal is through sponsorship programs and mentorship programs that are embedded already there. They don't have to create their own or search for them. And so that's just one way to support women, which are three strategies that will be bringing us to some potential legal challenges.
So yeah, the circumstances surrounding DEI have changed a lot recently in the past few months, and this is going to affect companies, and it affected our project as well. We started our project off with an insurance brokerage, and they are no longer able to be as visible with their DEI initiatives. Therefore, the suggestions and recommendations that we had for them, they could no longer really implement them on social media or really use the strategies that we provided for them.
Yes, unfortunately, there have been large developments, especially with the EEOC getting involved and scrutinizing companies, which has just had a huge change on initiatives that were set in place a couple of years ago. So unfortunately, our company did have to pull back. They just don't want to be scrutinized, and with the legal procedures that are happening, that is a very scary place to be in right now. So it was a real business world challenge that we had to actually deal with this project. It's really interesting. And there was another challenge that we did not put on this board that I wanted to touch on here, and that is the relationship with TikTok and the US government right now. TikTok is a China-based company. They're actually a CEO and they're based in China. So they had some issues with data sharing and data discrepancies going on. And this was a few months ago. And just recently, this Friday, after the tariff announcements from President Trump, he actually announced that TikTok will have 75 more days to be acquired by a US company. So if that does not happen, then users in the United States, and there are millions of them, will no longer have access to that app, which will also be a challenge for one of our proposed strategies and recommendations. So
those are the challenges that we found when coming up with our strategies and recommendations. Which brings us into just question and reflection. For me, this project really did challenge me, especially in the case of having to switch midway through not even midway, but just a month ago, and have to do the switch from working with a client and being close with them, trying to personally solve their problem, getting ready to present to them, a grade dependent on them, to now switching to be, all company wide and having to change that research. So that's something that I'll have to deal with in the future, and it doesn't really happen in classrooms because, those projects are pre-planned so long ago. They don't just get, switched a month before they're due. So that was something that I learned from this project. It's been a really great experience for me. And then for me, I really enjoyed having a professional development experience where I'm able to kind of interview women, do kind of the more recruiting aspect, because that's what I want to go into after college. And also just as working as the project manager, kind of just like managing the team and doing schedule conflicts and then dealing with the client as well will be very good for my company. So the question that we have for you guys when we have more questions, I know that we have limited time here, is what are your best practices for recruiting women with sales? Don't be shy. And that's okay. If no one has an answer, we can always take.
You guys have any thoughts on,
It's not so much, and this is more of a credit to the industry, and I know you're involved with like the UNIW, but. And this is maybe the industry needing to do a better job of this, but like. Like if anybody's in financial lines, like the bridge transcends is all women that are in the D and O. I mean, Gallagher, you got your confidant, women, that's kind of helping sell into like a CFO network. But maybe we need to be doing a better job, with your students, because there's also that organization chief, and there's all these, but are we exposing women that want to get into sales to these type of like organizations that, are trying to help women do exactly that.
So so the point being, there are these organizations in the insurance industry for women. How do you connect them to college students who are not necessarily my students who might want to go and be in sales, That might be, so API can be really, whatever. The organization.
What's your organization that's is it Delta Sigma? Not one of your sisters. Sorry, my son is in PSE, which is a sales and marketing fraternity, so that's what that would be an interesting, I don't know if they have a
We
chat.
do that here,
Yes.
But like, as far as, it'd be interesting to get that group's perspective on.
I think, any questions, students here in
Yes.
sales? And then I think that formed part of your information.
Yeah, we did a lot of students just to get their input, and Illinois State is so different just because we do have the King School of Insurance, and we do have these. We have like the SLAB, the Student Leadership Advisory Board, who really work to bring students just from class, but outside of class to actually get involved with things, which was a problem a few years ago, especially with COVID-19. Students stopped attending things because they couldn't, and so our school is really different just because of the effort that students have put into getting other students involved. It does take a lot of initiative to get people to do things that they don't have to. They don't have to do this stuff. And sometimes students aren't thinking about their future necessarily. It is a trend that happens and a trend that a lot of companies are facing now. That a lot of recent graduates aren't holding their jobs for a very long time, or companies are not satisfied with the performance of their recent graduates. So I think that is a problem that is kind of permeating other universities that aren't as supportive and don't push this involvement like ISU does.
I don't have an answer to your question specifically, but I do think that even if you recruit women in sales in this industry, like I love the networking is your net worth comment that was made earlier. But to get deals done in the industry, it's your relationship, it's your network, and candidly, it's a lot of men doing deals with other men, right? So even when you said that they're not happy with their graduates and the challenge women face, even though they get into sales, is even greater. And I'm in that group of moms too, that makes it even harder. So, I don't have an answer to that question. I feel like that's a huge question to answer, so.
Yeah, we were definitely tackling a very broad and.
Yeah, that is hard.
Yes.
Case to solve.
Who did you talk to? I mean, we have APIW, we have a lot of very strong women's groups in insurance. Some of the smartest women I've ever met are in the insurance industry. So how did you go about identifying?
They talk to those women, yeah.
We used a lot of different resources like professors. We also had our coach here who connected us with a lot of professionals too. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I think what's interesting is I noticed that you were presenting metrics on the brokers.
Yes.
The broker side. I worked on the retail underwriting side, but there is a sales component within what I do or in what my peers do at Chubb that is a de facto sales job. We call it field ops and field leadership and all of that different acronym or tags. But our company is, I know what our metrics are in our Midwest region, and it is greater than 50% female. And many of those women are in leadership roles and client facing and broker facing roles where they're out interacting with those folks. So just keep that in mind. And we have like what I heard here was a number of different, what we call business roundtables. So we have different employee groups that are centered around different interests, neurodiversity, salute for vets, pride for the LGBTQ community. There's Mosaic, which is the multicultural piece. So there are institutional efforts within many companies, regardless of the roadblock that you ran into a month ago, that are out there and they live and breathe and they bring companies together around those dynamics. Whether or not they're successful, it's probably company by company.
I would say just don't get discouraged. We did a lot of good work, but just giving you a little bit of information. So we had a huge awards meeting for our company, 3,500 of our top leaders in the business and sales leaders. A couple of things I'll mention. One is when our CEO mentioned the change to DEI, he made a commitment that we will not change our position in DEI. And it was probably the only standing ovation of the entire 4-day event was those comments. So I think there's a lot of companies that are still doing the right thing. They may have a legal team that's cautious of all sorts of things on TikTok. We have very strict social media guidelines. So maybe it's just compliance and social media guidelines, but I think you'll see companies are doing the right thing. And the other thing I'll mention, while we don't have 50% of our sales force are women, I will tell you the top salespeople in our company have a huge percentage of them being women. So we have a successful track record of very, very successful women in sales, even though the percentage of our sales force is not 50% women. The successful folks we have are doing a really, really strong job. So, maybe just don't get discouraged, and corporations get pretty conservative when it comes to what they put on social media channels. So maybe it was just a component of the strategy to be tweaked, but the companies should be doing the right thing, even if they're not as comfortable with it published.
Yeah, we would definitely hope that companies would want to do the right thing. I mean, we hadn't presented any strategies or recommendations to them at that point. We had just been on calls, getting more insight of what their actual issue was, because they proposed that they wanted to actually work on this. They didn't feel like they had enough women of color in their sales force. And so before we actually introduced any of our strategies or anything like that, they did express that they wanted to pull out from this, just due to the fact that, yes, they were going to continue their DE&I initiatives, but they don't want to be public about it. They wouldn't want to share a project that they were working on. And because of this, we just came to the conclusion that because they can't use the strategies and it wouldn't be useful for them, it wouldn't, give us a benefit to continue to work with this client forward and just continue working with their coach. But I completely agree. Women possess all of the qualities that could be great at sales. I mean, they possess all of the cultural aspects, and then being able to be compassionate, relatable, that goes a long way when you're trying to sell things, especially business to business, trying to get through the problem instead of just selling somebody with mumble jumble words. So I completely agree with you. That's great that these women are very successful in thinking.
I think it was another issue that they found a little challenge with was the shift commission versus salary. And, you know, that percentage and how variable the income was seemed to be another issue that.
Is it still like 15-17% less, something like that? Is that what you found?
No, the idea of not having a consistent
Oh, for all
salary
employees
or
as
a
opposed to.
consistent income each month.
Yeah.
Both are true.
No,
Yes.
I think that's,
But that's something middle districts go through as well, right?
yeah, but it evidently didn't affect them as much.
Is there a E and I rebound? It felt like a few years ago, E and I was such a buzz, the companies went to the extreme. And I think over the last year or so, it's kind of rebounded, come back down until you find where that middle ground is. I think it's still being worked on. I think it's got ways to go. I'm not saying it doesn't, but
I think the idea was they, you know, the client is still gonna do it. They just couldn't be visible, as visible, they needed to be, you know, for this project.
We rebranded ours several years ago. We went from a chief diversity officer to a chief cultural officer. And it sort of changed the temperament and the context, and it was, it seemed like it was more just changing the name was more welcoming to all. So I think the efforts are gonna be alive and well. I'm really pleased to hear, you know, was it Howard Gallagher, is that what you call? That Pat stood up and made that proclamation. That's, you know, that's the earmarks of a great company, right, and great leadership.
Definitely, I completely agree.
And I think that's present in a lot of our respective employers and organizations that we work for, so keep the faith.
Very good, thank you.
There's not a student blog, right?
Yeah, great job.
Students go to these projects that have some challenges. Is there anywhere they can post it to an industry, like the people at this table? And say, we're in this competition, or we're doing this study on D&I, we're running into this stoppage. Is there anyone that can
Well,
help?
you can't, so one of the challenges we run into in surveys is anything that leaves this campus as a survey has to run through our IRB approval, which can be several months.
Right.
So.
I think you could probably roundtable and get some ideas from people here.
We could, I mean, if we wanted to do something like for next year, you would start the IRB process now. And then the students could, you know, have the survey data, you know, going forward for the next project. We want to do something.
I think like Lori Goldman would easily speak to this topic. I love APIW. It's a great
Yeah,
organization.
I
I
mean,
said it.
it is different in sales. Sales is a
Yeah.
different, there's a
Okay.
profession. Okay, so before we have Andre come up, yeah, I just wanted to kind of put this all in perspective. We had a few years ago had this study done, and we asked the industry employers, and we did get IRB approval on that to go out to all these companies, and we said, okay, what are your top skills, what are the most important skills, and what do you see from your employees? Now, they didn't differentiate between RMI, non-RMI, IHU, or anything like that. This was just employees in general, college graduates in general, was the score they got. So we found there was a gap with oral communication, written communication, critical thinking, time management, were some of the top ones that we had. And it kept the discussion going. And so the board came up with some ideas that goes back, you know, more than 10 years now. Well, how about we, you know, create some kind of certificate for this, it's now called a badge program. And you would do one category, a deep dive on something, professional exams, consulting project, some sort of technical development, get the big picture perspective. And this is, you know, ERM, insurance demand, regulation, things that are going on in the market, climate change. And then the actual skill building, communication skills, negotiation skills, you know, consulting skills, all of those kind of things. So we're this overall, they get 100 possible points. And if they get through all of these, they get a badge now. And each year we have about 25 or so students completed. We have at any given time, more than 100 students that are in the program. We do have that as a scholarship criterion that we look for on this when we're weighing who gets scholarships and how much. So, but this was something that was created in conjunction with the Katie board. Many of you have been around for a long time, know that. So a lot of these activities and conferences and competitions, all those kinds of things, well, as internships, which we do, are things that fit into this idea of co-curricular development outside of the classroom. Okay, so getting next to our recruiting efforts, we're going to continue on. We have the highest freshman applications for RMI that we've had. Normally we have like literally, less than one handful of students come in to ISU thinking they want to be RMI. It's usually somebody whose dad runs an insurance agency. This year we had 8, which is, double. So, but it's important. We have a little bit of a critical mass there, coming in for students who are applying. We have the current high school program, highest demand that we've ever, had last year, over 90 applicants. I think we're up to about 50 or 60 some odd right now for the program we have going on. And then a new initiative I want to turn to and introduce one of our partners is Chicago Scholars and Andre Hebert. And Andre, you want to come up here and introduce yourself and present this? And you can talk about Chicago Scholars.
Fantastic. Happy Tuesday, everyone. 2 things you need to know about me. I'm from the South, so I speak loud and I go over time. So if y'all want, hold me accountable to my time, because I know y'all are crunched. It is an honor to be in front of you all and talk. I'm also a mover. So if you don't want to look at me, that's okay. Look at the screen and just listen to my voice. I'm gonna hand out my business cards because we're probably crunched on time, so if you just take one and pass it around, that'd be great. Some questions that I have for the group, before I begin. How many of you went to college? Raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Also, it is warm in here and y'all just had lunch, so I can only assume that y'all are on your way down. So y'all need to stand up. Get a Celsius, drink some Diet Coke, please do that, take care of yourself, because I need you engaged, because we're about to go on a roller coaster. How many of you went to graduate school? How many of you identify as first generation and are low income when you went to college? All right, the numbers keep getting lower and lower. Where'd you go to college? What are your undergrads? All of you went to Illinois State? No. What are some other undergrads y'all went to?
Arkansas,
Arkansas, which Arkansas?
University of Arkansas.
University of Arkansas,
Raise your
okay.
hand. The Harvard.
All right. Oh. Wow. We're going strong there. Who else? UConn, no, Kentucky. I'm sorry. Wow, fighting words. Okay, University of Kentucky. Got it? Who else?
Southern California.
Southern California, USC. Very nice. Anyone else?
Illinois Wesleyan, all the way.
2 miles away.
Illinois Wesleyan, a platinum partner, Chicago Scholars. Great, great, great. Anyone else?
Allegheny College.
Allegheny College, nice. Awesome. These are great institutions. And we're really excited to partner with a lot of institutions across the country, even though we are based in Chicago. So I'm from Chicago Scholars. My name is Andre. You see him as pronouns. I didn't even know that I was gonna match my outfit today, but in case you just need to know what I look like, there I am. I serve Chicago Scholars as the Managing Director of Partnerships. I've been in higher ed for about 15 years. I know I look 5 years old, but I've been in the world for a little bit of time. I got my master's degree in higher education from the Ohio State University, go Bucks. Even though I am a Southern Louisiana boy, first generation college student. My dad worked in the oil field, my mother worked at home. So I know all too well, the challenges that first generation college students go through, when navigating that space. So I'm gonna do a couple of things with you today, and I know I only have a few minutes, so I might breeze through. I think in your folders, you should have received a one-pager about partnering with Chicago Scholars. If you don't remember anything today, know that Chicago Scholars is here for you. It is now more than ever, is the time to start taking bold and risky action if you want big benefits in your industry. And working with Chicago Scholars is one of the many solutions to an issue around diversity, equity, and inclusion in the insurance and risk management world. Bold statement, I know, but we gotta go there. Chicago Scholars is a college and career leadership organization. At the core of our work, we focus on three core principles really: economic mobility, leadership development, and a sense of belonging for our scholars. We've been around for almost 30 years. That's a long time in a college access organization, specifically one that is regionally based, not national. How many of you knew of Chicago Scholars before this? I would be surprised if there was any. Wow, nice, thank you. I did want to show you some of our metrics. We did about 2 years ago, we did impact research project with McKinsey. And these are some metrics that we came out about our impact in the world. I wrote them down too, so don't mind me taking a little bit of notes. $6.8 billion total lifeline earnings for all scholars, which is about 1.2 million per scholar. How many scholars are we talking about? We have seen over 6,000 scholars in our program. Every year, we orient about 550 Chicagoland students that identify as first generation college rank students, predominantly from low income households and predominantly students of color. $500,000 each scholar contributes in societal benefits. $700 million cumulative merit aid awarded, which is 2.5 times more aid, financial aid at a college level, by the way, than a typical undergraduate since we've started our on-site college and leadership forum, which is our signature event back in 2006. Our students are 2.5 more times YMOC is Young Men of Color. We started that initiative about 2 years ago. Our scholars are 2.5 times more. They earn more. Let me get this right. I practiced it. Right, our Young Men of Color scholars earn 2.5 times more than the average Young Men of Color in Chicago. I got it. And we have about a 76% college graduation rate, which is well above the about 40, I think it was around 46% for CPS, which is Chicago Public School System. So we're doing some pretty magical work in Chicago. This is our mission. We uniquely select, train, and mentor academically ambitious students from under-resourced communities to complete college and become the next generation of leaders who will transform their neighborhoods and our city. Again, I'm gonna breeze through this because I have other ideas that I want us to get to. We have some core values that we think as Chicago Scholars. Education is social justice. Our scholars are capable and they're resilient. Your zip code should not determine your life expectancy or outcome. Our young people thrive when they find community and more. These are some barriers to success that our scholars and our partners see throughout our hiring process. So for students and alumni, there's a path to college and career that's a barrier. Lack of C-suite diversity, right? I know I'm preaching to the choir whenever I see a lack of diversity even at this table, right? What does that mean for the perception and the way that we go about recruiting young diverse talent, especially in this day and age? And there's little social capital for our scholars. So Chicago Scholars comes in, we bring our partners together, we do this excellent programming, and we elevate our scholars to the next level. For companies and organizations, I'm sure, again, I preach to the choir here, there's a hiring shortage here for young, diverse talent that's ready to do great work in your industry. Leveraging diversity, equity, and inclusion potential, and then, of course, these challenging markets. I'm sure I could do like 7 other slides on more barriers and issues that you're facing in your day-to-day work. Our scholars, like I said, are academically ambitious. Our average scholar GPA is a 3.6 or above. And by the way, we don't have a GPA requirement to get into our program. So we're already getting students that have a high GPA. They're future management track talent. 44% are in leadership roles and opportunities for the career. They just skyrocket through those experiences. 77% give back to the community. And then, like I said, predominantly young people of color, 93% identify as a person of color. 89% of them come from low-income households. Our work is divided into 3 sections: college access, college success, and really this career and leadership advancement work that we infuse throughout. Basically, what you need to know is that we recruit for our program fall of their junior year of high school. Our application goes live, we interview them, we read their applications, our partners interview them, we orient them the summer after that junior year into their senior year. We program with them robustly. We assign them a college counselor, we assign them 2 to 3 adult mentors, and they partake in cohort-based monthly workshops that prepare them for the college application and beyond. That's for a whole year that they're in our program. Year 2 is if you're tracking time when they matriculate to college, that's that first year in college. We kind of melt them into the college success team. These are teams in our office that support those scholars as they're on campus. So the, over 3,000, close to 4,000 now scholars that are on campus right now, we have an in-house team that still supports them. This career piece, this leadership development piece, not only is it infused in all of our workshops to get them really advocating for themselves, knowing the power of relationship building, knowing how to sell themselves, getting ready for college, but we also have an in-house internship program. It's called Emerge. We work with many corporations that want our scholars specifically. So we have a Emerge internship program. We have growth labs that our companies do for our scholars weekly over the summer. And then we have companies that want our scholars after they graduate. So they send us jobs, we post on our internal job board, and they hire our scholars. This is a little bit of our impact. 96% of our scholars matriculate to college right after their high school graduation. That's big, that's great. But 94% of those scholars persist into their 2nd year of college. If anyone has been working in higher ed, you know that institutions always look at this year 2 persistence, and ours is high. This is very high, which is great. 76% of our scholars can graduate within 6 years, which is, look, 47% of CPS grads. We don't do 4-year graduation rates. We know that our scholars need about 5 or 6 years to graduate, and so we build in that 6-year graduation rate. But if you're ever interested, I can give you that 4-year as well. A little bit about our network. So, I keep on mentioning that we're in Chicago, we're in Chicago, but our network spans around the country. We have schools that partner with us in about 32 states in our country. Illinois being the largest, and with about 29 schools that partner with us. Followed by, I think, like New York and Massachusetts. We have over 6,000 scholars, like I said, about 150 career partners, 400 mentors in year 1 and year 2. Emerge internship programs, there's about 60 of them. And then we see over 1,000 volunteers every year for our program. So we are well connected. We have a campaign currently that's called We're Everywhere. Because no matter where you go, airports, grocery stores, libraries, schools, you say, oh, I know Chicago Scholars, and they're like, I'm an alum of that program. I know someone that was a mentor in that program. I was a college counselor of that program, or I even worked at Chicago Scholars. So we are well known, we have a great reputation in the industry, and like I said, we're here to help you. Our partnership philosophy is really grounded in 3 key features: intentional engagement, sustainable development, and centering scholar success. I will not work with an organization if you can't get behind these three things. Right, because at the end of the day, what are we all about? Economic mobility, sense of belonging, and leadership development. This is how our scholars are going to be successful. This is how we're gonna have access become not an issue anymore. So we need companies that are ready to fight the fight with us. And you know, we live these principles by these various ways. But this is, whenever I have these strategic conversations with companies, I make sure that they hit all of these things, because you need to know what we're here for. And then I want to hear from you, what are your issues? How can Chicago scholars play a part in your success? Illinois State has been with Chicago scholars for quite some time. We've partnered with you all since dating back to about 2015, which is great. So we're coming up on about 10 years of partnership. Illinois State has sponsored campus bus visits for scholars pre-COVID. And these are some data for the applications and enrollments. So Illinois State University continues to be in our top 10 list of schools that receive number of applications from our scholars and matriculation of our scholars. You can see some of those numbers here. I'm always working, I don't know if anyone knows the admissions team here. I work with Derek Small. He's our primary contact usually for Illinois State. Y'all have been outstanding partners in this process. Y'all always show up. Y'all do really good work. And then I got approached by Brian Specialty at Illinois State University saying, hey, we want more access. We want more diverse students in this industry. Can we work together? And of course, I said, oh yeah, why not? So we've been working, Jim, I think it's been over a year now, really coming to the table and brainstorming of ways that we can get the Katy School in front of our scholars, get our scholars in front of you, get them to these professional development opportunities, and begin thinking about what the next strategic plan for Chicago scholars looks like. FYI, I think you heard me when I said we're in almost our 30th year, which means that we're undergoing a strategic plan change now. So come July, we will have a new 3 to 5 year strategic plan. And in that plan is going to be a pilot for career cohorts. Career cohorts are just cohorts that are based by career industries. I think we're gonna, don't write any of this down, turn off the recording aspects. But I think we're gonna pilot 3 industries for these careers: business, STEM, and healthcare. Business, I'm looking directly at the Katy School and Ryan Specialty. I'm looking at Aon, and I'm looking at Morgan State University. I'm looking at these institutions and these companies that want to build pipelines for students from high school to college to career. And I think that we need to work together. So these are some ideas that we've brainstormed just over the past year. What are some ways that we can work by providing the access to the students that are diverse in nature, that could be very interested in the insurance and risk management field? How can we get them to campus? How can we get them to the RIMS concert? It probably would be a lot better if it was a concert, but I know it's a conference. How can we get to the conference that conveniently is gonna be in Chicago? How can we get them in the office of Ryan Specialty so they can start seeing themselves in the field? How can we get them involved in the fraternity that is on campus that's doing professional development and leadership development, not only for your current college students, but for prospective students that might want to come here? It is all about the power of relationships. It's all about partnering together to see the magic that we can do. You can see some benefits, but I mean, there'll always be benefits. I want to talk about the programming. How can we work together?
And I just want to let people know that endowed scholarship, that comes from Tim Turner. Remember in the Hall of Fame, we had the 2 funds. We had the Hall of Fame fund, which is basically the table, you know, things, and then the direct contributions that people, organizations could make to the Tim Turner Fund. The Tim Turner Fund is strictly for these underrepresented students, and he even mentioned in our agreement with the foundation, Chicago scholars
as being, you know, one of the organizations that he wants us, working with. And so we have been, you know, even before the Hall of Fame, we were already, you know, in the discussions.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm gonna pause here. I'd love to hear any reactions that you're experiencing that. Yeah, I just wanna hear, how is this sitting with you?
If you're interested in getting involved, like. There's companies headquarters here, there's companies like us that have a regional office in Chicago. I mean, I'm kind of familiar because Cleveland has something called College Now.
Yep.
So is there a way for like, you know, at the start, you know, grassroots, you get involved, and the idea was the college success part, okay, they're in. You would mentor them and help them because, you know, you've done all this work to get them to college, you know, probably drop out, right?
Yeah.
But what are the different ways, like, you know,
Like corporations can get
can
involved?
get involved, and at what scale and.
Yeah.
Where could it start?
Great question. Again, that if we have a conversation, you're like, I wanna get my organization involved, I'm gonna go back to those three principles of what's intentional engagement look like. But I'm gonna ask a couple of questions. What does a successful relationship look like for you? Do you want just more visibility in the Chicago market? Are you looking for a branding opportunity where we can do some social posts together? Do you have a Rolodex of employees that are looking for mentorship opportunities? Do you have a day of service giving? Do you have a giving strategy? You know, like these are questions that I'm gonna ask you. Low level engagement is, let's sponsor an event so we can have our name on it. Let's volunteer at various events. We do events all year. So I'll send 3 here, I'll send 5 here, I'll send 1 here. The mentor thing is a 2-year commitment, right? So it's usually like a level 2 of not low hanging fruit. It's a commitment. So we have our adults come on and we say, this is a 2-year commitment that you're gonna commit with us. Obviously it's volunteer, so you know, life happens. But that's kind of next level. The level above that is where we begin to dream, right? We begin to say, we want students to come into our office more intentionally. So let's maybe build a fellowship program. We have money to support students over the summer, let's build an internship program. Or we can say, we wanna host or sponsor a whole cohort, right? So maybe one of those cohorts, those career cohorts, is sponsored by an organization, which means that you have exclusive opportunities to program with that cohort of students, right? We can really build this partnership that leads us to the greatest social impact, right? We're also very familiar with impact reporting to companies if they do have these like community service initiatives. We do a lot of reporting on the impact that we're doing. I think they say like eyes on whatever social posters, like we do analytics on all of that. So we can do anything from like that low hanging fruit level to something that's pretty massively invested.
Thank you.
To start that, you just need to email me.
But I think you have one up here, industry sponsored events in the office. That, you know, we could have our alums involved, we got alums represented, you know, in just about every one of these. Companies, I think in that, you know, so that engagement space when you guys have yours, you know, your students there. I think that would be, you know, something that we can pull off very easily as well as put together kind of our alums, which, you know, represented from this group of companies. So.
And from what I saw at the Hall of Fame event, y'all have a lot of alums in Chicago. A lot of industry folks live in Chicago. So again, how can we leverage us? Right? We have the access to the programming, we have the access to the students, we have a large alumni base as well. We're connected with all of the institutions that are in Chicago. Let's work together, right? If you have intentionality around building a pipeline for these diverse students, let's put your money where your mouth is.
Andre, I think one of the things that you guys do that I really like, that I you know, I don't see with some of the other organizations. And I think that's why you get a 96%, you know, engagement, 76% graduation return the second year, and 76% graduating rate, is you stick with them their entire time in college. So it's not just, we're gonna, get these people all ready for college, point them in the right direction, get them some scholarships. Good to go. You do all that, but you stick with it.
Yeah.
And I-
We're a wraparound support system.
Yeah.
That is very different than even national organizations that you might know about. Right, a lot of these organizations are very well known for niche programming, skill-based programming. That's that counselor structure, right? They get a counselor, they learn how to do the application, and then the counselor kind of releases them. Or there's mentorship programs that are out there. And then you have the ones that just do scholarship providers. That's great. And those are absolutely relevant and needed in those communities. But Chicago Scholars is almost like a full service organization. We will see them through college graduation and beyond.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Comments?
Yeah, I want more reactions, not just from two
Is
people.
there thoughts of maintaining a Katy school, ongoing connection between Katy school and Chicago Scholars?
Absolutely, and we've got the endowment that goes with that, so we will have students who will get scholarships from that go towards the Chicago Scholars, who we will be involved in. We've got the high school program that we run, so we'll have Chicago Scholars in that high school program. We talked about the buses, sending students, to campus, and all that. So all of these are opportunities that we have done or can be doing going forward to, enhance that engagement.
Right, because we've talked so much about trying to get a more diverse student base. Through the school, and I think
this is.
I like the opportunities
Yeah.
available in this industry.
I think that's a big part of
Yeah.
it, And I think that's one of the things, Andre, I know your students look at other careers and things like that, but one of the things I think that Tim Turner and RT Specialty have done is, help to get some shelf space with your students, right? And it's like, okay, when they're picking, careers, there is this, career in insurance that they may not have contemplated. And you guys have been very engaged with that idea, and we talk about business and engaging the insurance industry, so that is very helpful.
Appreciate that. I mean, this is gonna be, this career cohort thinking is a programmatic shift from what we're doing right now. Right now, our cohorts are kind of randomly built for diversity's sake. We, give them a counselor, we give them some mentors that are also intentionally built. But now we're thinking, and we're seeing trends, not only in the college side with the admission kind of read process, but we're seeing organizations very similar to the insurance and risk management come knocking at our doors and say, we want more diversity in X industry. And that's different than what we saw 10 years ago, when it was just like, we just want to hang out with your students. Now it's much more thoughtful, which is great, because you want to be very thoughtful about your connections to these students. So that's why we're thinking, if we can get them early, build a career cohort model that allows them to see themselves in that career in 7 years, then we think that that'll retain them, that'll get them invested in your early talent pipeline, and then it just kind of continues this cycle. And so we're seeing some really big excitement on this career cohort. And again, I'd love to work with you all a little bit more intentionally in this space.
You have a list of industry professionals in our industry that are alums of Chicago Scholars?
That's a really good question. Not in my back pocket, but we do keep track. A lot of it is self-reported. So we'll send all of our alumni, for example, surveys multiple times a year. Give us an update on where you are. And that's where we'll ask, what industry are you in? What's your job title? Where are you working? What's your salary, et cetera? So we could potentially have that, but again, it's self-reported, so it's hard.
And just, to be honest, has insurance over the years been, has it had the shelf space, or is this kind of a new?
Oh, this is a new thing. Yeah, this is a new thing. We haven't really, again, Jim was Jim and Carlos at Brand Specialty were really the first knocks on our door of like, we are seeing a need and we want to invest in this partnership. And that was a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. And since then, we have built the career cohort pilot into my partnership cultivation events and meetings. And we're already seeing like healthcare industries being like, we need better nurses, we need more diverse nurses, we're a shortage here. We're seeing, like I said, other organizations that are coming being like, this is what we can put.
The reason I ask is if you're gonna build a recruiting model, having, modeling success for those recruits seems to me like a logical step. You know, so if we could, identify a couple of key folks.
Good.
You know, and then you could build maybe, an insurance recruiting model around those key individuals.
That's interesting, yes, and this slide, I didn't give y'all the long presentation, but each of these had their own slide built out whenever I presented to Jim. And one of those was the deep partnership that this school needs to have with admissions. Because our primary contact for Illinois State is in admissions, right? So if we build this career cohort pilot program, then I will then begin working with you all a lot more intentionally. So I have to bring in that recruitment aspect from an admissions perspective.
If you recall, Jim, we've taken a stab at this over the years. Our old friend Jack Costello from Travelers was very passionate about this.
Posse and,
And we just, it seemed like we're still inching along.
Yeah, and I think what I like about this is their strategic focus on getting the students through college. Because if you look at it historically, we have a lot of freshmen that come in, the second year they're gone. And, in fact, 70% are gone. So from this demographic. So that's not their students though. So that's, I think, a huge difference. Yeah.
I like the fact that I just had an encounter with a nonprofit out in the western suburbs called Diamond Youth. And their mission is to go to kind of a father-son team and some other retired execs, primarily of color, that go around to same profile that you're profiling. And they mentor kids at the high school level, and then they give $21,000 scholarships for campus visits, because a lot of the kids are not of means to be able to come to ISU and spend overnight or whatever it might be. So kind of an interesting concept as well.
It is, absolutely, and we have a partner, a college partner, and I know I want to be conscious of time. In our college partnership structure, we have tiers of partners. And colleges that come on at certain tiers, a part of their partnership is offering a fully funded campus visit because of that exact reason, right? Our scholar, and I'm sure you all know this, and if you have college going students, you probably, or as children, you probably know this. The decision-making process of where I'm going to college is not virtual anymore. They got to see themselves on campus, right? And for us, it's bringing families along as well.
Yeah.
Because you're working with students that are in Chicago that some have never lived in the neighborhood, right? So the idea of going to a Southern California, or Arkansas or Kentucky is mind-boggling to them because they can't even think about going to the other side of Chicago. So getting schools that really say, we want you here, we're gonna pay you to come here, and we want you to see yourself here. We get better success rates. We actually get higher graduation rates for out-of-state, highly selective schools that are at the highest level of partnership.
Well, thank you, Andre, appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, thank you all. You have my card, you have my info, please reach out, I'd love to work with you all, and Jim, this will not be.
Thank you.
So welcome, so welcome. Safe travels back to wherever you all are coming from.
One of the challenges that we ran into that we, with the help of Spencer, have been able to overcome, at least for some of the students, is I would go out and I would ask, some of the students,
why aren't you involved in some of these activities? Why aren't you doing the consulting, why don't you do it? And the answer is, well, I'm working 35 hours a week. And taking full classes, because I have to pay the rent. And I have to pay my food bill. And so I don't have the ability to go do all of this and go to class and succeed in class. And so what we were able to do is get Spencer to help pay for students to be involved, especially in the consulting projects, to actually get as a paid job where they're, get paid on an hourly basis to do the consulting work. So that was one of the things that we discovered that was a bit of a challenge that we, we're going to do. Okay, we have one more student group that we're going to have present here. These are the students who were involved in the sales competition. After that, I'm going to get into, we have another presentation for kind of what we do in helping develop students the velocity of change out there. And then we'll, if we have time, Debbie and I and Kevin will have a little, share a few things with you going forward. So these are the two students that finished in the final four at the Florida State sales competition. So Parker and do you guys want to?
Yeah, for sure.
Do this?
Yeah, definitely. I'm Parker Meyer. Nice to see some familiar faces in the room today. I'm a double major in risk management, insurance, and finance.
Gavin Sarah, I'm a junior here. I'm also a double major in risk management, insurance, and finance as well.
And we had the amazing opportunity to go down to Orlando, Florida 2 weeks ago and partake in this case count.
So just a little bit of an overview, like Parker said, it was in Orlando, Florida. There was 13 other teams, including ourselves, who competed from 8 different schools, which we have listed here. And we were given a case study about Enchanted Wilderness, which is an amusement park. And then it kind of listed out some of their unique problems. For example, they were making a park, or a new ride at the park, so some of their growth. And then it was our job to provide some coverages for these unique problems.
Yeah, so during this case count, we spent quite a few weeks preparing with not only ourselves and our other 2 team members that went down there, but also Jim and some of his recommended partners that we worked with. And a couple of those industry professionals were Luke, Alex, and Tom, all from different parts of the industry. So it was really good to meet some new faces and really expand our connections. And we also got the opportunity with Jack and Danny, which were previous students that went down to Orlando for this case count and presented there and also placed in the top 4. Now, during our time, we really decided to focus on a couple of things based off some recommendations from Luke, Alex, Tom, Danny, and Jack. And those were building out them captive, focusing on parametric insurance, cyber, builder's risk, and also surety and performance bonds, which were really interesting to learn about. Now, we spent, like I said, a lot of time preparing quite a few times every week in preparation. And over here, we can kind of see a couple different photos. This is in preparing before we went into the first comp. And here's the actual case comp that we're going on. And we'll talk a little bit more about this photo later, but this is actually the night of the second day of the case.
So how were we assessed? There was a panel of judges who were all in the industry, whether it was brokerages or whatever it was, they were all in the industry. And the client who we were trying to sell to was also in the field. And so the criteria that we were being judged on was, for the most of it was needs identification. How well could we get their needs? That was about 45% what we were scored on for the first round. And then as well as communication skills, our presentation, how we overcame their objections and gaining their commitment at the end of it.
Yeah, and throughout the 14 teams that went throughout the day, 4 teams were selected to move to the next day, which is when they bring out, they'll give you about a 2-paragraph second part to they call it the fun twist, which makes it a lot more difficult. But our twist on there was a unique claim situation that they had, which was a lot bigger than normal sized claims that they experienced. And we had to come into the next day and bring our solutions on how we figured we could solve their claim and, really how our company could help them better. We also spent that night on that last photo I showed you, we were up quite burning the midnight hour, worked really hard to just for a 15-minute conversation that we had the next day. Moving on.
So something else we did out there, we were able to go to Disney University as well as Fort Wilderness. We were able to learn how a company of this size deals with their risks, specifically catastrophe exposures, and their unique solution to these risks. In this scenario, they have 2 separate captives. And then for Fort Wilderness, there's a lot of animals there, so we were able to learn about some different type of risks, like what they do with the animals when stuff happens. For example, anytime they find an alligator just wandering around, they have a bachelor pad, they call it, and they'll put all the alligators over there just to keep everything safe. And it is also a golf cart community, so they kind of talked about their insurance policies for the golf carts.
Yeah, and something that was really cool is actually the Disney team, the risk managers there, built the case out for this case competition. So it was pretty much, how can you insure Disney better? At the end of the day, was what they were kind of looking for, and I think we brought that to their eyes. So, but going on here, there's quite a few benefits that I wanted to bring up during this couple-minute conversation with all y'all. And the real-world experience is something that I'm super happy that we got to go for, because this really strengthened the problem-solving skills. And I'm a big competitive guy, and this is a very competitive competition going down there in Florida. And having those real-world experiences tying in to the real world and classroom experiences are really important. We also got to sharpen critical skills that we'll be using on a day-to-day life after I graduate and get through the next year or so at school. And those couple that I really want to mention were the critical thinking skills, the public speaking, and decision-making skills. Because whenever we're in this conversation with the client we're talking to, they're going to come in with a bunch of random unique issues that weren't really previously stated and that we have to kind of solve on the spot.
Yeah, we were also able to network with a lot of industry professionals beforehand in preparation, as well as during the competition. There was a lot of advisors and other students as well that we were able to network with. And then we were also able to enhance the Katy School's reputation and exposure by placing the finals. And then just adding on to that, for me personally, being the only junior who went, I feel like I was able to learn a lot from the seniors that I went with. Kind of just how they went about their classes and just, I don't know, being the younger one, I feel like I was able to pick up a lot of these guys as well.
Yeah, for sure. With that, we just wanted to say thank you guys for your commitment to not only us, but the Katy School here at ISU. And we'd like to open the field to any questions.
Very good.
That means we did a good job. I'll take that. Thank you, guys.
So that was the final student presentation. You can see, you know, another example of the test skills and ability and public, you know, you're not going to get, it's co-curricular, not going to get in the classroom necessarily. Let's see if I've got my next presenter. There it is, yeah. One of the things, you know, we have gone through, you know, now you can see critical thinking, communication skills, you know, business writing skills, all of these negotiations, there's all these skills that we're developing. One of the things we start thinking about is, what about innovation? AM Best now has a requirement for insurance companies when they evaluate insurance companies to evaluate how innovative the company is, because the idea is the creditors believe and the credit rating agencies believe that if you're not innovative, you're at financial risk in this world, which is with the velocity of change. So you get to thinking, you know, I think a lot of you have been around for here for a while would say, yeah, our students are great. And, you know, these kinds of skills that we've been developing through all these different co-curricular activities. But would it be valuable for them to come in with also skill on innovation and developing innovation within your organization? So that's the next presentation that we'll have. And Peter, I'm going to stop sharing here and introduce Peter Kaufman, is one of our professors here, and also the director of the Hagee Institute here in the College of Business on Hagee Innovation Center here in the College of Business. So, Peter, if you want to go ahead and can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Thanks, Jim. Can you hear me all?
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. And I'll be very, very brief because I know you've had a full day so far, but the importance of innovation, as Jim just recapped, is very crucial. Obviously, there's so many changes nowadays with technology and other things, but I just want to share a little bit with you about design thinking. Some of you may be more or less familiar with design thinking, a really exciting framework we've been using for the last several years in the College of Business. This is my background. I've been at ISU for a quick 20 years, so a couple quick decades. And I'm now leading the Hagee Innovation Institute. Steve and Sharon Hagee were our alums of ISU. And so the very top line agenda here is, what is design thinking? Why RMI students should be able to contribute to innovation, and why design thinking helps. So what kind of tool is it or methodology is it that's useful for us? And then most importantly, how is it implemented? And so a little about design thinking. And so you may have heard a little bit of this language in the past about these wicked problems and things, but it is a human-centered innovation framework or methodology, a problem-solving methodology, and it's really focused on human needs, right? And so if it's our customers or suppliers or whatever context we're working under, it's a great toolkit for attacking these wicked human needs, and it seems like there's plenty of them to explore with this framework here. A lot of us have been, at one time or another in a clinical setting, a hospital setting. This is an example of the use of design thinking to calm young children, kids down before they potentially have to go into this machine here. I think might have been a CAT scan, the circle of truth here, right? The donut of truth. And so they were able to employ design thinking in this case to relax young kids so they wouldn't have to sedate them as much, which is not usually a good thing. And so you could see some of the graphics and things and the design and how they put themselves, the designers in this case, put themselves into the shoes of kids and what would calm them down, right? And this is not certainly rocket science, but it's very creative, and I think it's, as the statistics, show, pretty effective, right? And so again, it's getting into the shoes of the user, whether it's the patient at the hospital, the person is insured, the agent, whatever that user is, right? And as Jim was mentioning, why is innovation pertinent for insurance? And AM Best is scoring that. And so in this particular case, preparing students to innovate and help insurers with their culture of innovation score. You've got here from 1 to 4, 4 being the best, I guess, in terms of having a culture of innovation. But these are being rated, right? Organizations are being rated on innovation. And this is looking at helping students and then helping companies with process innovations. Obviously, there's product, there's process. And so you can see some examples here of how that can be assessed. And then why does design thinking help with innovation? I mean, I go on and on and on. This is one of the more powerful frameworks I've seen in my 20 years at ISU in terms of ROI, return on time, of my time and students' time. It's one of the best methodologies I've seen here. And so it is about the collective and the team. And so you can see here, it's always a team effort. It's not something you do in solitary. And so, the background and diversity of the stakeholders is really important pursuant to the design challenge, whether it be, designing the room where the kids are going to be, getting their CAT scans or whatever the situation might be, but having a diversity of people who have relevant inputs on the design challenge. It could be hospital attendants in this case, and for the example I just gave, it could be parents, it could be kids, right? And they'd be involved in that effort. Out of the box thinking, I'm sure we've heard that many, many times. And then the power of empathy. Sometimes we can become a little bit detached with all the screens and technology that we've got at our disposal. And so being able to really sit down with that user who's experiencing, or customer, or person who might have had, unfortunately, maybe an accident or something and they need our help. But having that empathy is really, really important. So this gives students and those participating an opportunity to possess that empathy, right? And then something that students oftentimes don't, or rarely, I should say, get an opportunity to participate in higher education is this idea of revision. So revising their thinking over time and iterating. And so oftentimes a lot of students are, they do their project with their team and they submit it and then that's it, right? They get a little feedback and they get their grade, that's the end of it. Whereas with design thinking, it's intended to be sort of threaded through the methodology. It's this idea of revising your initial thoughts and solutions, getting more feedback, from users, and then revising again, and then getting feedback. And so it's that back and forth to get really an outstanding product. And that's a different type of learning that a lot of students really aren't particularly accustomed to. So it really gives students a good opportunity to practice that as well. And then lastly, wrapping up here, how is design thinking implemented? So where the rubber hits the road. This is one expression of the methodology. This is a wheel, so to speak. It's circular. They've got double diamond, which is a different representation of the framework, but it's all achieving the same objectives. And so you can see here at the top, you have a how might we statement, which is a design challenge, which is written in a very optimistic way. And then you've got moving to the right side there, you've got empathy. So what are the tools we can use to empathize with and understand the problem that the customer or patient or user or whoever it might be has? So each one of these hyperlinks here is a tool. So it can be printed out, it can be used digitally. So you got lots of tools for each stage. For our applications at ISU, we can run this in a class for the semester. We typically run it as a workshop. So usually it's 3 to 4 hours. Or we can run it, in a classroom too. So I've been running this over 3 consecutive classes in my capstone marketing course. And so as you're moving down from empathy, you move into brainstorming or ideation on the bottom there. And you see you got about 6 different really fun, interesting, challenging tools that participants can use to brainstorm. And then you move up to the left-hand side, upper left, to prototyping, where students create representations of their potential solutions. And then they can get feedback, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, from the users, and then improve it, and then give you test it again with users over and over again until they feel it's at an optimal state, right? And so that's sort of the brief cycle there. This fall, we've got a really exciting offering. This is a flyer promoting it with honor students. We've got students from all over campus, I think about 6 students, multiple majors. And this is looking at solving, in this case, the design challenge is a community challenge. So it's looking at access and affordability of childcare. But we're going to rotate out the challenge every fall semester. And this is going to run the full semester. And it integrates, excitingly, design thinking along with systems thinking. So we're going to map the system first of childcare access and affordability. And we're going to use AI to generate a crude map, systems thinking map. And then from there, we're going to have a workshop on design thinking with individuals who are experiencing and have experienced that challenge and are experiencing that challenge, or who otherwise have insights on that challenge. And so students going through that design thinking workshop, and then they'll be providing recommendations to the client, which is in this case the YWCA, that's local Bloomington Normal, I believe it's nonprofit there. And so that'll be a really exciting endeavor. I've seen very few instances in the, frankly, globally, of education, higher education, bringing systems thinking together with design thinking. So you have a very analytical tool combined with a very creative tool combined with a client. So you have teamwork, collaboration, and you have cross-disciplinary work. So we check quite a lot of boxes there. And these are just a few examples in the last 2.5 or so years of some workshops that were run at ISU, all different levels of the university, from the top level at the university, top 50 people, deans and chairs, provosts, and so on and so forth. It started at the top. And then we've done projects with all sorts of students, all different colleges across campus. So it's been really a great experience. And like I said, from my standpoint, it's one of the best frameworks from a return on investment in terms of time that I've ever seen in the last 20 years that I in higher education. So that's a quick kind of a quick overview. Happy to take questions. I know you all have quite a bit going on over there, and but happy to field anything if you have it.
Yeah, I guess the question, about the, trying it, failing, try again, like the long, because it's interesting, even the 2 women did a great job presenting on but it's like done in a semester, right? Is there anything happening where whatever you're working on kind of starts earlier and maybe extends over a 1 year, 2 year life cycle? Or is it all like, one
How
semester?
do you get iteration? That's.
Yeah, like if you're talking a semester and then, all right, I'm done with that class and now I'm on to.
Yeah. How does that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We had actually had a client that in the same program that Jim and I have been working on for several years. Last, I guess about 6 months ago, he gave us a project and he wanted it to be intentionally multi-semester. And it was the first time we'd ever been asked to do a multi-semester project because it was so complex. So we're doing it right now, and then we're continuing on with it this fall, more to implementation using some computer science majors and things like that to kind of build the tool out and be able to make it scalable. So I think that is a direction we're moving in. This particular fall systems thinking and design thinking model, we're calling it the Social Innovation Lab, is set up so that we provide the client with our recommendations, but we also leave it such that the students could create their own B corporation or nonprofit, and they can get innovation coaching. So we created some scaffolding. A fellow who worked for 40 years at State Farm and Country is an innovation coach, helping with College of Business and University students to be like a follow-on sort of consultant to the students. And then from there, if they want to start a business or whatever they want to do, they can be introduced to the Mean Center for Entrepreneurship, which has lots of funds for their accelerator, business plan comp, and things like that. But your question's a really important one. I think it also speaks to the role of adding modules on or content on leadership. Because frankly, my experience, in several years working in the private sector was, at some point you're going to have somebody come in and say, okay, we need to do this, right? We want to do this. How do we do this? And there's got to be there's got to be someone who's, whether it be a chair, probably a dean, who says, we want to do this. What do we need to do to make this happen? And I think that's where the leadership comes into play, because the students aren't really going to be telling, deans and chairs and provosts, that we're going to do this now. That's not really their place.
Okay. Well, thank you, Peter. Appreciate it. Yeah.
You're welcome. I wish you the best of the meeting. And if you have any other questions, happy to field them anytime.
Very good. So this is, an example what the Katy School does outside of the, they call the conferences, so we create these workshops. As you've seen in the past, some on visual analytics, we have one on, and there's different, ways of analyzing, say, claims data. We give them real world claims data for a company and say, tell us all the different ways you can, visualize this, present it, create a dashboard for management, is an example. We've had one on systems thinking, especially systems thinking as it relates to like wildfire, climate change, that kind of thing. So we have these different workshops we run typically Friday afternoon kind of thing. Some are on Saturdays for the students, can be a little bit more extensive. And the idea is for them to develop these additional skills that they would find valuable, as they enter the industry. So, it's kind of things. All right, so Debbie, I think you had something that you wanted to talk about, and then we've got Kevin, who has a few things.
Sure, well, my job is, the students shared so much in the student roundtable that we heard about all their activities, but 150 things that they've done this semester, and over half of them are industry related. And of course, that's the Katy School hallmark, it's industry engagement. What sets our program apart from others around the country. Other schools try to emulate what we do because we have such success with the industry. So thank you for that. We've covered conferences. You heard from the students how important that is. We have 16 conferences this year that students are attending. We have 29 at the WSIA. We've got 13 going to RIMS. We have 1 at PLRB Plains. We've got 2 going to IMUA conference coming up. So the students see the value of that, and so it's so beneficial. So thank you for that support. Zach did a great job going over the DEI event and how powerful that has been for cross campus activity. You heard from our students in the fall about international internships and going to London, Bermuda, and Zurich, the value of that. alumni networking, we have our Gamma Games coming up April 25th, brings alumni back. Teams with students to do win it in a minute groupie games, but in formal settings, our students are comfortable, younger students, it's a social activity, get them engaged. It's all good. We have, I know, then we'll talk about symposium. Share information on that. In June, we have, or excuse me, in May, we have our Insurance Financial Regulators Program. We'll bring 25 individuals from different state insurance departments to campus for a week-long program. June, we have, June 9th is our 34th annual K-School Golf Classic. I think we might have one foursome left, sponsorships available if anyone would like to assist on that. Great fundraiser and fundraiser event. July, we have our high school summer program. We'll bring 25 participants from the seniors in high school to campus for the Redbird Risk Challenge. And from last year, we had 25 participants. A third of them have enrolled in RMI and actual science this year. So we're real pleased on the results. That's learning itself too. And we've had a relationship with Boys of London. We have done it annually, an event that brought 20 people from across the Lloyd's market to Chicago for a week-long event that we coordinate. And it's every other year, so we're doing it in the even years. So this year there will not be a Lloyd's program, but one following year. Same with our Hall of Fame dinner, great success in 2024. We do it every other year, so 2026 will be the next one. So that's quick. Any questions? Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, scholarship program tonight too. Just an FYI, we are recognizing the students tonight, the awards of nearly $194,000. So they've excelled across the board. They've been recognized from different, external organizations, from you folks. Great group of students. So please, so many of you can join us tonight. They're looking forward to seeing all of you. Thank you.
And Kevin, wanna wrap this up before we wrap up?
Sure, I'll just do some of the, you wanna click on it? I'll do some of the administrative stuff, kind of give you some information about some of the counts. Always curious about basically how counts are basically going within the department. And so what you see here is there's been a pretty significant growth in the number of finance majors in the department. And now we have, you can see in spring of 25, we're getting close to triple digits again with RMI majors. Of course, most, again, has been mentioned here, not a lot of people basically come here as freshmen. And so we're constantly recruiting basically people into the major. And so even though you can see from fall to spring, every single year, we're having some success in basically converting some students to RMI majors. But we're still going to have to replace the ones that are graduating, because again, there's not too many as freshmen. So you can see we're getting better, and I think we're getting at a tipping point, in my opinion. I think once we start to get more students basically involved, word of mouth basically spreads very, very quickly. And hopefully we can keep some of those numbers, and the students can be our best ambassadors into the program. So questions about?
Is that like demographic, like, does that align with kind of what's happening with the university, or is fine?
No, the College of Business has been basically the source of growth essentially for the entire university. But yeah, I mean, FIL has been one of the largest growing departments in the College of Business as a result. And trying to figure out what's going on with finance. I think a lot of students basically are bypassing accounting, and they're somewhat, they still have interest in some sort of quantitative field. And I think that's why they're basically picking finance. It's the only explanation essentially for me, outside of leadership in the department, of course.
So is opposite of a town major or a destination major?
Which would be finance.
Yeah,
I mean, they come
I think
in,
that's
they
right.
know what
And more, and this is basically, you'll see in the other numbers here as well. Our advisors are really pushing minors. To trying to highlight opportunities that students, if they take only 1 or 2 extra classes, they can get a minor designated on their resume. And so they've been pushing two particular ones in our department, RMI and financial planning. They do align with the finance major so that students can get additional programs, and our advisors are pushing it, and students are taking advantage of that. So I think that's a good part essentially of the growth that you're seeing in the minors here, is essentially the advisors highlighting the choices.
Is there a cap for RMI majors and minors, and are we, you know, how much room do we have to grow?
So right now, I think we're really good in terms of faculty, so I think there's plenty of room for growth essentially in RMI. For finance, it is getting a little bit tricky. Our classes are really, really full. And then when we have faculty go either on, maternity leave, or they go on sabbatical, it's tough. It's tough. But right now, RMI is really good. I think there's plenty of opportunity for growth because we've gotten enough faculty. We're getting back to the numbers that I think that we had when we were in triple digits. So I think we're doing good.
Is there a 101 class?
For RMI?
Yeah.
So ours is, it's a 250. It's our intro. So in fact, thank you for the segue. We're basically, you can see in the middle there, what we're trying to do is create two separate doors for students to introduce them into RMI. One, essentially, we're calling sort of the corporate door, which is basically geared toward business students. And so that's our 250 course, and we call it the new title is Intro to Risk Management in Business. The idea is that it doesn't matter what discipline that you're actually in the College of Business, there's going to be some risk management elements associated with that. It's kind of more like an ERM type of course. And it talks about the risk management process very broadly before we really get into insurance as a specific solution towards some of those risk management problems. So that's what we're calling our corporate angle. It's within the College of Business because that can come as a free elective for the students here. A little bit more across campus. For all students, we're looking at more of the personal aspect. And so this ties in well with what we're doing in the department. We're doing a financial literacy program across campus as well. We have a course related to financial literacy for the college student. That's actually a gen ed. It's the only gen ed that we actually have in our department. But what part of that is personal risk management. So these are individual insurance contracts. So it's not just necessarily about, it's a little bit about budgeting in that class because there's some risk management associated with budgeting, but it's also about trying to understand how individual products can basically protect you, health, homeowners, auto, those types of things. So those are the two doors that we're that we think that we can sort of sell to at least get people there. And the faculty are doing their best essentially to try to highlight the other opportunities that are within risk management and insurance to try to get them to say, hey, you could double major without, or get a minor or something like that. As we continue to try to push this, we're trying to look at other ways, especially outside the college. The RMI minor is very good for people within the college to be able to get some exposure to insurance. Outside the college is a little trickier because of the prerequisites that they may need to have to get into some of those courses. So we're trying to look at some other ideas essentially that we could massage the minor that would eliminate some of the prerequisite concerns that people in the College of Business already basically meet. And another way to do that is you can see that last bullet point, is ISU has now created smaller, they're almost mini minors. They're called certificates. And they're 9 to 17 hours. And so these have now been fully designed, or at least defined in our curriculum. So now it's the process of potentially trying to decide what courses might go into that certificate, whether it's RMI specific or whether or not, let's say, again, it's personal financial literacy, where there might be some courses that kind of go in there. So that's kind of where we're tinkering now, essentially, to push the boundaries a little bit more, to at least get some more exposure to where students normally wouldn't have had.
And do they have to be RMI to begin with, I would assume? Or can you just be a finance and then that could be your.
It can be history.
Yeah.
All right, so that's.
Okay, just interested in the insurance. Yeah, and that's really what I think most of our faculty really try to do, is try to encourage students to get involved in a gamma, to lunch and learn, and start to basically engage with the industry. And that's the hook, essentially. Yep. Other questions?
No AP classes at the high school level.
No, not yet. In fact, Jim is, we talked a little bit about it. We haven't seen much development in the community colleges for any sort of insurance. And we wonder whether or not that could actually take off, or if we have the opportunity essentially to maybe do something online so that they could actually take it through ISU, but get credit at their community college. That does get a little bit tricky in terms of trying to set that up, but those are things that we're trying to explore.
I talked to a couple of teachers at the DECA competition who said that the level of insurance that they teach at high school is life insurance, homeowners, very, very fundamental. There's nothing more out of it.
I suspect it's probably a lot like personal financial literacy, where usually in some of the textbooks that I've seen that are geared toward high schools, they'll have 1 or 2 chapters, one really related to basically property risks and one related to like health risks, essentially in terms of managing personal risks.
So we do have partnership with a couple of colleges, Zurich from America, so we have an apprenticeship program, and our apprentices get a certificate in insurance. So our education partners do have an insurance course or 2 that they take. So maybe a way to pathway some of those students.
And then the only other thing I'll just quickly mention there at the top is that there has been one change to the major. We used to have 2 separate coverage courses, basically, within the major. We had one focusing on property coverages and one focusing on liability coverages. We've had some discussions here at the Katy board. Most of the other schools across the nation only have one coverage course. And some of it is because insurers have their own, proprietary language in those courses. And so all we really want students to do is sort of navigate those coverages, be able to pull one out and be able to read it. They don't necessarily need to know every single coverage that was provided in 2 classes. We thought that was a little overkill. And so by basically combining those into one course, we have the opportunity now to highlight some other things. Like, for example, we added a course on torts as an elective. We used to have we still have a course on insurance law, but there's a little bit of overlap between our insurance law course and the torts course in legal studies, as well as a course on personal sales and marketing relationships. That's one that we've been pushing kind of a lot, that have some exposure. We think that might be good for some brokers to get some exposure to those types of things. And so that is now an elective in the major as well. So. And Redbirds Fly is another one. This is our financial literacy program. Love to talk a little bit about, I don't know if organizations even provide some sort of financial education to their employees as part of, signing up for benefits or those types of things. Love to learn essentially what maybe some employers are actually providing to their employees as well. Right now, this is pretty small. We're trying to basically tap into the audience that's going to help us basically expand. The problem is that everybody knows, I think, how important financial literacy basically is, or how it should be, but unfortunately, students are only motivated if they get some sort of, carrot to basically attend these things, and whether that's extra credit or something like that. So we're trying to figure out the right way that we
Extra
can
credit with their parents doesn't count.
Because I told you so.
We keep talking about maybe essentially sending out some notices to their parents to basically say, look, this is important. Again, feel free to reach out if you have questions as we move forward.
Very good. So we'll wrap up here, and I'll just tell you, we've got the 2 student presentations that'll be next week. So you'll see an extended version of what the students presented, the 2 women presented today on how do you attract and retain women in sales. And then we have another presentation on artificial intelligence and the regulation of artificial intelligence in insurance. So that will be at the symposium. Here are the links. You can just go to you can just Google Katy School Symposium. It'll take you here. You can see the different speakers that we'll have. We have one event on Monday night, which is actually one of our artificial intelligence professors here is gonna show students something I think they're gonna be kind of blown away on, is they're gonna go just based on publicly available information, looking at a risk and saying, here's all the things that we can tell you about this risk. In this case, there's a bookstore, and it's like, and it'll identify all the coverages, all the risks, all these, and then the impetus of this is, now what's your job? If all of this can be done by AI, so what skills do you need now? Which skills do you need to be developing? And the answer, of course, is all the soft skills that you see develop through the activities, that they go through now. Anyway, so this is the agenda. We'll have, high level on economic public policy. It's included, the effect of tariffs on the insurance industry. First, I guess, student presentation on AI insurance at 11 o'clock. Both the student presentations will be 11 o'clock, the Tuesday and Wednesday. Maybe recognize some of these people. We elaborate trends in Europe, resilience in shrinking markets, resilience, IVHS. This is going to focus a lot on the wildfires, I think. And then CAT modeling, most of you know Karen Clark, I'm sure. And then some coaching kinds of things and some data analysis. So those are all free. You can go out and register for these at our K School symposium. Just Google that. So, all right. For the people who are new here, I apologize. We usually have about 50% of our board meetings on some strategic issue moving forward. But I just thought, now's kind of a time to do a level set on what is it our students, we always, Debbie does the presentation on, here's all the things that we're doing. But I think having the students' perspective is really, valuable. Hopefully you found that valuable. The next time I'll put you to work like we normally do, and asking your feedback on and input on strategy, where we need to be doing going forward. But hopefully you feel a part of all these things that we are doing, because they came from this board. Here are the suggestions, recommendations on how we develop talent and the velocity of change, and that's been part of the board, and your support both in the board meetings and the support afterwards, and then support with financially as well. And then finally, we have an announcement. Debbie, did you want to?
After 35 years at ISU and with the K School since its inception, my plans are to retire this summer. You're the first to hear this, and I haven't shared it with the students or alumni yet. It's really hard to share this. You, the board, and individually have been so supportive of me to allow me to be a people broker in our industry. It allows me to bring two groups together that I'm passionate about, the industry and our students. Between you all, Jim, Andy, Nappy, you've opened so many doors for opportunities to enhance the educational experience for our students and to help them to grow personally and professionally from their time at the Katy School. In doing so, you've allowed me to help to match your talent needs with our outstanding candidates. And it's so heartwarming to see how many of your companies have hired our graduates. You allowed me to take students to conferences to enhance their business etiquette skills, expand their personal networks while learning more in depth about our industry. And you've entrusted me to build 3 international internship programs from scratch, going to London from Newton, Missouri. You've entrusted me to lead a program with Boys of London for nearly 30 years. You've asked me to run golf. And to assist with the Hall of Fame, which has been incredibly successful over the years. You've allowed me to oversee the scholarship program and trying to match you all with recipients that might fit your needs down the road. I've been allowed to be the advisor of Gamma for over 20 years, and work closely with executive boards and what goals they have set each year for the chapter, and it's so much fun to see them, reach these goals and accomplish that. And to work with our alumni, oh my God, they're fabulous, and help coordinate the alumni mentoring program. And you've allowed me to be invited to sit on industry boards. And you just encourage. I mean, excuse me, I've encouraged you, some of you to join the board, and aren't you glad you've done that? But, this is all a family affair to me, that's why it's so hard. The students are my kids. And I watch them leave with a diploma in hand and head into our industry with the skills that they need to be successful. And what roles they have now, executive vice president, senior vice president, risk managers. The alumni continue to be family with invitations to weddings, baby announcements, photos of their dogs, and funerals to attend for loved ones as well. My family just keeps growing every year, and I'm so blessed. You've given me so many opportunities for me to grow, personally and professionally, and I can't thank you enough for enriching my life to these experiences, friendships, and knowing each of you. Thank you, and I will miss you all. Thank you.
With you over under it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking 6 to 12 people to replace her.
Yeah.
That's a whole board meeting right there.
Yeah, that's right. No, that's absolutely, you're right. You're 100% right on that. So, well, I'm over time already, so it's 3:00. So, what we'll do is send out, an email to you on setting up the September meetings, and we'll see what works. But, you're absolutely right. Debbie has been the Katie school for, even before I got here, Debbie was the Katie school. Debbie's.
I know where I'm
And has, been in this unique role of connecting students to industry. And the students have benefited from it, the industries have benefited, society benefited from Debbie. And Debbie's been recognized, but around the community many times for her efforts. And I have been tremendously blessed for, walking in here and having, Debbie as our associate director. That has been just a tremendous, benefit, to the program, but to me personally as well. So thank you, Debbie. All right, so we will, we'll adjourn here, and then, we will have the scholarship, was it 5:30? Let's see. 5:55. 5 o'clock.
Live
Okay, yeah,
reception and dinner.
Reception, 5 o'clock. Okay, thank you.
Live reception.
Say hi.
We'll do.